Battle of Iwo Jima during World War II is something many of us know about, but what happened 2 days before Marines invaded has not been covered in history books. A man's journey to find out what happened to his grandfather.
The discovery of 73 bodies sealed inside a single underground room is just one chilling clue to what still lies hidden beneath Iwo Jima. When the Battle of Iwo Jima began on February 19th, 1945, it quickly became one of the bloodiest confrontations of World War II. What made Iwo Jima so hard to capture was what could not be seen from above. Decades later, recovery teams have returned to explore areas once marked as enemy burial zones. In this video, we'll find out what was found in the tunnels,
where the Battle of Iwo Jima once raged on. The island is located approximately 575 miles off the coast of Japan and is only 8 square miles.
And be assured that it will leave you stunned for life. The discovery that shocked the world. Deep beneath the hard black volcanic rock of Iwo Jima, a moment unfolded that would quietly become one of the most haunting discoveries of the entire Pacific War. And even decades later, the weight of that moment still seems to hang in the air. In April 1945, long after loud guns had gone silent and after American commanders had already declared the island secure, scattered pockets of Japanese soldiers were still hiding inside a huge and complex tunnel system carved into the ground. Many people might ask how anyone could still be alive down there after weeks of bombing, fire, and non-stop fighting, but reports explained that this underground world was built to survive almost anything. On April 11th, Captain James Kolb of Able Company was helping set up an ambush when a patrol noticed 2 Japanese soldiers stepping out of a hidden opening in the rock. A short exchange of gunfire followed, and one of the soldiers ran back into the opening, not knowing that this move would guide American troops to something far more important than one escaping fighter. That small hole in the ground led into a deep underground complex that served as a hospital during the brutal battle that raged from February 19th to March 26th. This was not a simple aid post. Reports described a carefully built medical center sitting about 100 feet below the surface, protected from airstrikes and naval shelling, where wounded and sick soldiers were treated in darkness and silence while chaos ruled above. A question naturally comes to mind. What kind of life could survive in a place swallowed by weeks of endless bombing and fear? Deep inside the tunnels of Iwo Jima, something shocking was waiting to be found, so make sure you watch till the very end, because this changes everything. As troops moved deeper into the tunnels, another discovery waited that would shock even the most battle-hardened soldiers. Inside one chamber, 72 members of Japan's 2nd Mixed Brigade were found alive. Instead of rushing into a final suicidal charge, something rare had happened. Reports said the commander had called a vote on whether to surrender or fight to the death. This alone was almost unheard of in a military culture that praised dying in battle above all else. The result stunned everyone. 69 men voted to surrender, and only 3 refused. One of those 3, Corporal Kyutaro Kojima, ended life immediately rather than face capture. This group became the largest number of Japanese prisoners taken at any single time during the entire battle for Iwo Jima. Many people might wonder what fear, hunger, sickness, and exhaustion could do to even the strongest belief systems. This moment suggested that something deep inside the underground hospital had shifted. Death was no longer the only path some soldiers could see. In the days that followed, more Japanese fighters chose capture over suicide or final attacks, showing that this surrender marked a quiet change in how survival was viewed at the very end of the battle. Even now, decades later, those underground rooms still exist, holding objects that seem frozen in time. Medical tools, bottles, and supplies from World War II remain in the dark where doctors once worked under extreme pressure, trying to save lives with very limited resources. Some tunnel sections are still too dangerous to enter because of weak walls and unexploded weapons. A simple thought comes to mind. How much history still sits hidden below the surface, untouched and unseen? These spaces are not just empty caves. Each room once held injured soldiers, exhausted medics, are moments of fear, hope, and quiet suffering. Recovery teams from Japan still return to Iwo Jima to search for remains, and in recent years, 51 sets of remains were found in areas that had been marked long ago as enemy cemeteries. Experts believe that as many as 2,200 Japanese soldiers may still lie in these underground spaces. For families who never knew what happened to loved ones, every discovery brings the chance for closure after more than 75 years. The tunnels also offer a rare look into the mental and physical struggle faced by soldiers trapped below ground during one of the most violent island battles in history. These underground halls may be silent today, but they still whisper stories of sacrifice, fear, and lives forever changed beneath the rock of Iwo Jima. And what lies deeper inside is even more haunting, so make sure you watch till the very end as we step inside the tunnel network of Iwo Jima. Inside the tunnel network of Iwo Jima. Lieutenant General Tadamichi Kuribayashi became known for changing the way Japan fought on Iwo Jima, and this change came through an underground fortress so massive and so carefully planned that many American soldiers later said the island felt alive and hostile from every direction. Kuribayashi had learned from earlier battles that meeting American forces on the beaches only led to fast and terrible losses. So a new idea took shape, and that idea asked a simple but powerful question. What if the real battle did not happen on the surface at all? Kuribayashi decided that the island itself would become a weapon. Deep under the volcanic soil, a hidden world began to grow, one that would allow defenders to fight without being seen, to move without being caught, and to survive even when bombs fell like rain from the sky. This underground world would later claim thousands of American lives, not because of one single battle, but because of how hard it became to find and defeat an enemy that almost never showed a face. Work on this vast tunnel system began in 1944, and the labor behind it came from both Japanese soldiers and around 1,000 Korean laborers who were forced to help with the digging. Engineers and cave experts from Japan designed the maze, drawing plans that could survive heavy bombing and still allow soldiers to move and fight. Most of the digging happened at night because daylight would have revealed the project to American planes. The volcanic rock of Iwo Jima made digging easier than solid stone, but the conditions underground were brutal. Heat inside the tunnels often reached between 30 and 50 degrees Celsius, which meant sweat poured non-stop and breathing became difficult. The air carried toxic sulfur fumes that burned the lungs and eyes, and in some areas workers had to wear gas masks just to stay conscious. In the hottest parts, digging could only last for 5 minutes at a time before workers had to pull back and recover. One might ask how people could keep working in such a place, and the answer came from a mix of fear, discipline, and the belief that this underground world would decide the future of the battle. Kuribayashi used this growing tunnel network to support a new kind of defense called defense in depth. Instead of lining soldiers up on the beaches, the plan placed fighters in layers across the island, most of them hidden underground. By the time American Marines landed, more than 11 miles of tunnels connected around 1,500 bunkers and fighting positions. This meant Japanese soldiers could move from one area to another without ever stepping into the open. Fire could come from any direction, then vanish again. Many American troops later said the enemy seemed invisible, and a question often formed in shocked minds. Where was the enemy? The answer was that the enemy was everywhere and nowhere at once, moving through a hidden world beneath the sand. The tunnel system connected more than 700 concrete bunkers and about 730 major defense points, along with many artillery positions. This design allowed weapons in one area to support another across the island, limited only by the shape of the land above. Guns could fire, disappear, and then reappear somewhere else without warning. It was as if the ground itself was fighting back. Kuribayashi understood that even if one bunker fell, another could keep fighting because all were linked by underground paths. This gave the defenders a powerful advantage, turning Iwo Jima into a giant trap. Deep underground, Kuribayashi built a headquarters that sat about 20 meters below the surface. This command center included caves linked by 150 meters of tunnels, and inside were 3 concrete chambers, one of which served as Kuribayashi's personal war room. From this hidden location, orders could be sent, reports could be received, and the entire defense could be directed without fear of air attacks. The underground world also held barracks for soldiers, storage rooms filled with ammunition and supplies, and small hospitals where wounded fighters could be treated away from bombs and shells. One communications center had a chamber so large that it stretched 50 meters long and 20 meters wide, making it feel like a secret city buried inside the island. Even Mount Suribachi, the famous volcano at one end of Iwo Jima, was hollowed out into a 7-story underground structure filled with rooms, tunnels, and gun positions. Survival inside this hidden fortress required careful planning. Ventilation systems were built to bring in fresh air and push out the deadly sulfur fumes and heat. Gasoline-powered generators supplied electricity, which meant lights could shine and radios could work even deep underground. These radios allowed units to talk to one another and receive commands without ever being exposed on the surface. Storage areas held around 500 large drums filled with water, kerosene, and fuel oil. There were also huge stocks of weapons, ammunition, and food rations. Almost everything needed for long-term fighting was stored underground. One thing always remained rare, and that was fresh water. Iwo Jima's soil was full of sulfur and could not provide clean water, so every drop had to be brought in and carefully guarded. This massive underground system turned Iwo Jima into what could be called a 3-dimensional battlefield. Fighting did not only happen across the land, but also above, below, and through it. American forces could capture a hill, only to be attacked again from behind or below. A bunker might seem destroyed, but soldiers could appear from a hidden tunnel nearby. A Marine once said that the Japanese were not on Iwo Jima, but in Iwo Jima, and this sentence captured the truth of what Kuribayashi had built. The island was no longer just land. It was a living fortress, filled with hidden paths, unseen fighters, and a design meant to make every step forward dangerous. Kuribayashi knew that victory was unlikely, but the goal was to make every inch of the island cost as much as possible. Through tunnels, bunkers, and careful planning, a small volcanic island became one of the most deadly and difficult battlefields in World War II. The underground fortress did exactly what Kuribayashi intended. It slowed the enemy, inflicted heavy losses, and proved just how deadly a well-planned defensive system could be, even against a far stronger force. But that was only the beginning. Watch till the very end, because the real story lies beneath the surface of Iwo Jima. Life and death below the surface. A haunting picture slowly took shape beneath the volcanic ground of Iwo Jima as reports described how Japanese soldiers lived and died inside a maze of dark tunnels that served both as shelter and as a place of quiet doom. And many people later wondered how any human body or mind could survive in such a place for even a short time, let alone for weeks, because temperatures inside these underground spaces reached as high as 130 degrees Fahrenheit, and the soil made mostly of volcanic ash offered no cooling relief at all. While General Kuribayashi's men received only small amounts of food as American attacks cut off almost every supply route, yet even in this terrible situation, Kuribayashi ordered officers to eat the same tiny meals as ordinary soldiers, and even went as far as telling stewards to place empty plates on the table when military rules demanded a formal meal, which quietly showed that hunger had become a shared suffering for everyone. And at the same time, the work of digging and expanding tunnels exposed soldiers to dangerous sulfur gas that seeped out of the volcanic ground, slowly filling the air with fumes that burned the lungs and eyes. Many soldiers actually died from breathing in these gases long before any enemy fire reached such spaces, while no fresh water existed on the island, which meant thirst became a constant pain that never went away, and the air inside the tunnels grew so thick and hot that one modern visitor later said, "The moment a tunnel entrance was crossed, the heat rushed in and made escape feel like the only natural reaction." How could exhausted and wounded men endure such air day after day? Inside these tunnels, medical rooms once meant to save lives turned into places of slow suffering where World War II medical supplies still lay untouched in the dark, while wounded soldiers waited with little hope, and American forces, knowing that Japanese fighters hid deep underground, used flamethrowers to force movement, a weapon so feared that Japanese soldiers called it "devil's breath." Yet even the soldiers who carried this weapon faced an almost unbelievable 92% fatality rate, showing that even attackers were never safe in this brutal fight. For Japanese soldiers buried inside these caves, the emotional strain became just as painful as the physical suffering, because constant bombing shook the ground, dust fell from the ceilings, and every sound felt like a sign that death was coming closer. And many wrote final letters home that did not speak of duty or the emperor, but instead spoke of mothers, family, and simple love, which quietly showed where the heart truly rested at the end. And some later survivors described the shelling as the worst experience imaginable, while Ensign Satoru Omagari said that the endless deaths destroyed belief in humanity itself. So in those dark tunnels beneath Iwo Jima, surrounded by heat, gas, hunger, fear, and the knowledge that escape was almost impossible, every moment became a test of both body and spirit, leaving behind a legacy of suffering that still feels hard to fully understand. The ongoing search and historical legacy. Decades after the guns fell silent, information continued to surface about how the island of Iwo Jima still quietly gave up long-hidden secrets through careful recovery work, and officials explained that modern discoveries carried not only physical remains, but also deep emotional meaning that reached far beyond the sand and rock of the island, raising a simple question in many minds about how a place could still hold so much history so many years later. Reports shared that in 2011, Japan's Prime Minister visited two newly found mass grave sites and promised to recover more than 12,000 Japanese soldiers who were still missing, a promise that grew stronger after the release of Clint Eastwood's film Letters from Iwo Jima in 2006, which reminded many people of the human cost behind the battle. Recovery teams worked from American military records that listed places marked as enemy cemeteries, and this led to locations near a runway and at the base of Mount Suribachi, where one site alone held about 2,000 bodies, a number that caused quiet shock and deep reflection. Search crews later dug into the Suribachi site and uncovered 152 sets of remains, while more than 300 bodies came from the two main locations combined, and officials described how the bunkers around Suribachi still showed clear signs of fierce fighting with cracked concrete, exposed steel bars, and twisted metal shaped by heavy naval fire. A surprising discovery came in 2017 when an underground air raid shelter 11 meters below the ground was found, where temperatures inside reached 70 degrees Celsius, a detail that made many wonder how anyone could have survived for long in such a harsh place. Even with years of work, officials explained that nearly 11,500 Japanese soldiers still remained missing, even though 10,410 had already been recovered by 2018, which raised another quiet question about how so many could still be lost after so much effort. To deal with this, the Japanese government turned to advanced underground radar that could see objects up to 10 meters below the surface, and this technology revealed 1,798 possible locations that might hold remains, turning the island into a map of hidden memories waiting to be uncovered. Recovery leaders spoke about how time now worked against many families, since brothers and sisters of the fallen were already in their 80s, which added pressure to complete major recovery work within 3 years so that living relatives could finally receive answers. Officials also shared that many visitors noticed water bottles placed inside tunnels, and these were not trash, but offerings left by Japanese citizens for soldiers who had died from thirst deep underground, a quiet act of respect that showed how the past still touched the present in gentle and powerful ways. With this, we have come to the end of this video. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, do well to like, comment, and subscribe for more content. To enjoy more thrilling stories, click now on the following video that pops up on your screen.